year 1953, there was a secret program born out of Cold War fear and scientific hubris, an effort inside America's own intelligence service to learn how to control the human mind. The program, later known by its dry code name, MKUltra, would blur the line between research and crime, dragging hospitals, universities, and ordinary citizens into an experiment whose full scale remains unknown. The context was simple and stark. The Korean War had introduced Americans to stories of brainwashed prisoners. Soviet and Chinese interrogation techniques terrified policymakers. Against that backdrop, the CIA gave a small team license to explore anything that might yield an interrogation advantage. Drugs, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, electroshock, and techniques the agency described as behavioral engineering. Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist with a quiet manner, became the program's point man. Under layers of secrecy, funds moved through front organizations and private foundations to pay for research in institutions across North America. Some of the experiments read like a dystopian novel. Scientists tested LSD, then a newly synthesized compound, on volunteers and, more damningly, on unwitting subjects. In a case that shocked the public decades later, CIA associate Frank Olson, a government biochemist, was dosed with LSD without his knowledge in 1953. Days later, he died after falling from a New York hotel window. The Olson case would eventually force public admissions and a government apology more than 40 years on. Perhaps the darkest chapter unfolded in Montreal. There, the respected psychiatrist Dr. Ewan Cameron ran a research unit at McGill University's Allen Memorial Institute that received CIA money through intermediaries. Cameron's goal was de-patterning, stripping away learned behavior and rebuilding a patient's psyche. The methods were extreme: prolonged drug-induced sleep, massive doses of barbiturates and hallucinogens, repeated electroconvulsive therapy, and a technique he called psychic driving, in which taped messages were played for hours or days. Many of Cameron's patients were not spies or volunteers, but ordinary psychiatric patients who left institutional care profoundly damaged. For 2 decades, the program operated under a cloak of compartmentalization. Records were sparse by design. Payments were routed through private foundations, universities, and hospitals to hide the CIA's trail. Then, in 1973, with Vietnam-era scandals piling up, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered files destroyed. That act alone would become part of the scandal. What did the destroyed documents hide, and who had been harmed? Investigations followed. In 1975, the Rockefeller Commission and the Senate Church Committee peeled back parts of the secrecy, revealing that the CIA had indeed sponsored experiments in mind control and behavior modification. When a cache of roughly 20,000 documents survived and was released under FOIA 2 years later, a fragmented picture emerged. Hundreds of projects, dozens of institutions, and thousands of individuals touched by work conducted without informed consent. The human cost made headlines. Victims and families sued, some winning modest settlements and acknowledgments, most famously the Olson family, who received an apology and compensation in the 1990s. Others, especially those harmed in Canada, engaged in protracted legal battles and settlements that only partially eased the damage. Yet because so many records were destroyed, the full scope and true victims list may never be known. MKUltra left a corrosive legacy. It exposed how Cold War paranoia could warp ethics in science, how oversight could fail, and how secrecy can shelter wrongdoing. The revelations prompted reforms, stricter rules on human subjects, institutional review boards, and greater legal oversight of intelligence programs. But the story also fed a broader cultural suspicion. If a government that promised to protect its citizens could clandestinely drug and break minds, what else might be hidden? Today, the MKUltra files are a cautionary archive, part historical record, part wound. They remind us that the search for security can sometimes become the justification for the very abuses it was meant to prevent. The faces of the victims, the torn records, and the unanswered questions linger. Testimony to a chapter of Cold War America when the pursuit of advantage eclipsed the most basic human rights.